In this video, we're going to go over the basics of the V3R system. So we do have a very comprehensive website with individual tutorial videos, but this is just going to give you the general overview. Think of it like a recorded webinar. So what do all these things on the screen have in common? Well, they're all visualized using V3R. And all the images were captured using V3R. So we can simulate everything from metallic silvers and golds, we can do foils and glitters and neon colors and whites and clear toners and varnishes and everything else. The new development of the system is also doing fold-ups, so Z-folds, a greeting card folds, it could be a tri-fold, roll fold, all the different types of folding mechanisms, which means we've now got rendering on 3 different panels in this case. And we're also doing packaging as well. So basic packaging, this is not to replace a tried and tested CAD-based high-end system. This is basically for doing quick visualizations using V3R to show you the effects of the different embellishments. But we can simulate all that and fold it all up. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically explain how the system works. So let's start out with this greeting card. So the whole premise of this is that you create your spot colors of where you want the effect to be. So for example, let's just turn off the CMYK and look at this clear. So that might be a clear toner on a digital device. We could also do it maybe as a raised UV varnish. That could be something like Duplo or Scodex. In which case we're just going to keep it clear for now. So I've given the name a spot color called clear. The V3R software has a lot of different names recognized in it, and if it doesn't recognize what you've called your spot color, then you can use the layer mapping manager. We have also created a separation here for glitter, and that glitter is basically we're going to simulate it with something. We don't know what yet, so I'm just calling it glitter. We're also going to do red foil, and we're going to do a silver, so we have silver toner in this case, so the red foil will be like foil stamping, and then we're going to also do some white ink as well. So white ink, you can't see white on a computer screen because when you set the white to print it goes transparent, so we have to give it a color to see it, which is why it's blue. So these are the complexities of when you're designing. First of all, you can't see white on your computer screen, so you give it the blue color. So you're designing in the wrong color to start with, and you have to put it in areas where you don't want the substrate to come through. So if I do it on a dark substrate or metallic substrate, we're using it to block out the reflectivity or the colored paper. So you're having to think backwards, and that's the first complexity. Varnishes, clear toners, they're translucent, you can't put them on the screen, they don't show you anything, so you have to give it a fake color. In this case I'm using green because, well, why not? I mean, what color am I supposed to use, because clear is clear, so give it an identification color. Now silver, that's not as hard because you can give it a gray color, but it doesn't have the reflectivity or the shine. The same with the foils, I've given it a red color, but it doesn't give me any of that dynamic shine that I get from a foil. And what color is the foil? Because foils come in many different shades. There are over 300 different types of foils by one company alone over here in the UK. So I use a company called Foilco. They have 50 different golds inside their foils. So you know, it's not just a case of having one color, you've got to be able to change that. And then glitter. Is it silver glitter, gold glitter, red glitter, pink glitter? Is it a holographic glitter? How would you see that on the screen? So we always have to just give it a basic identification number, color. And that's the problem, because when you're showing this to a brand or your customer and they're saying, this is what we're going to do, it's going to kind of look a bit like that, but not quite. So, you know, just bear with me because, you know, I can't show you all the effects. Well, that's where V3R comes in. Well, I'll always say this. You always should get a press proof done prior to running any commercial job. V3R is there to give you the design inspiration. So instead of working up a design like this and going backwards and forwards to the printer, running out proofs and making changes and going, okay, well, that didn't quite work, didn't like that, maybe I should change this, then this can speed that up. It can help you do visualizations for promotional, so you can put it on your website, you can use it in sales meetings, you can have it as a door opener to go in there and see it like a virtual sample library where you can show people live all these different effects. So What we're going to do is we're going to go into V3R and we're going to play around with this image. So let's open up V3R. Now at the moment, I will say this is my demo software. It's what I'm building at the moment. So there may be a few things in here that are not available in the current version, but I will explain them as I'm going along because there's some new features coming out in the next month or so. So you basically select PDF, select your file, and it will bring it into the system. So what we're going to do first of all, let's focus on silver. So silver isn't just silver. By that I mean, let me just switch some of these things off. So we have reflectivity, and a lot of companies that do visualization software leave it at that. They maybe go to this level and put a bit of surface texture in there, but overall it's basically light and shade, and it's reflectivity, and that's what creates the illusion of the metallic. Well, that's not the way metallic works. Metallic actually has particles in it. So what we can do is we can actually switch on the particle size and give it that realistic, true effect of how a silver would work. So when you catch the light, it sparkles. So we can go to that degree. We can change the color. We can change the opacity. And there's a lot of different sliders. And I'm not going to go through all of these. This is where you need to watch the video tutorials for each section. I just want to explain about what these core features are and what they do. So we'll start with silver. So we've put in some pre-configured information. If you think that your silver actually looks a little bit lighter than that, you can change it if you want to do. And then you can go into your presets and you can then save as default, and that will then say every time that you use that silver, when you have a file called silver in it, it will automatically load it up and show you exactly what we see there. And just to prove that, let me just go over here and change all these sliders to something completely nonsense. If I now go reset to default, it brings it back to what I set, my colors, my opacity, my flake size, etc. So you can personalize the software to work the way that you're working. Your inks, your coatings, your varnishes, your foils, etc. Now, if you have different types of silver or different types of foil or different types of varnishing, maybe you've got a clear toner on a digital device like a Ricoh Pro C7500. Maybe you've got a Duplo machine, in which case they're completely different beasts. So you can save presets. So if I decide that this is my Ricoh toner, I can save that. Now I might then go into something else and play with something else. I don't know, change to get rid of all that flake size right down. Maybe it's completely smooth. Play around with my silver to whatever I want it to be. And I say, okay, well that's my Flexo silver. I can save that. So I can always go back in here and call up a saved preset. So you can build a library of different settings and you can export them. So if you have set up your V3R software and you have a client that's using it, you can export your settings out and say, okay, this is my silver, load it in, and then you will visualize your files the way that our press works. So when you are exporting, do make sure that you give it a sensible name. So, if everybody called it just silver, then you're importing silver in every time it would overwrite it. So put your business name in there when you're saving your presets. You can also delete them and all that fun stuff. So that's the way that works. If you want to, you can always go back to a factory reset, in which case it's only going to reset the panel that you're in. Every single panel is independent of each other. And we can also change the order of the panel, so we can move a layer up, down, to the top or to the bottom, and we can delete it. And that's really, really important because silver might be there as an underpinning color, like an underlay, position 1 on the press, or it might be an overlay. And if it's an overlay, it needs to be above the top of the CMYK. Now, if you noticed here, when we moved it up, it's gone above the black. The black was actually a shadow in here. The rest of it was knocked out by default because that's how the artwork is set up. But you can see there, we can move those layers up and down without any problems whatsoever. Independent. And that is the great thing about it, is that you have to have a system that works the way you do. Now, speaking of this, we can also turn off all of these colors if we want and see each build independently, how it all layers up, etc., etc. We do have some more advanced features inside V3R. I'm not going to go through all of them today. This is more of an overview video, but we do have things like tone curves. Now, these are pretty much unknown of in 3D rendering. On the fly, realistic, at the same time, I can open up tone curves for my spot colors and my CMYK. So you can see here we've got 2 tone curves. So I can go in here and I can say, right, select a point, go in here, and I can set my curve the way that my press works. If I'm pretty much filling in top heavy on the cyan, same with magenta, maybe it fills in a bit over here, I can put all this in, and I can also save these as settings to use again the next time. And we can also do the same with the silver. Now the silver's not going to make much difference because it's all actually 100% solid, but just to prove it, we're going to actually reduce it down and change it almost like the opacity. So we can save all that. Now I can close those down and I can then go back into it. Anything with a blue box and a dot means it's in use and it's active. So you can see there we were doing live 3D on the fly rendering to see how it all works. So tone curves, very important. So you can match it that bit closer to what you get on the press. If you want to go back to basics, just go to identity and that will set it back to a flat curve. So if you do want to dial it in, you shouldn't really need to do, but if you do find that your colours are a bit slightly different, you can push it up because all printing presses are different. What we're doing here is rendering in a 3D RGB environment, and that is very different to what you get on a press. So gives you the ability to do that. Next up, let's just reset that magenta as well. Get rid of that one. Okay, so let's take a look at glitter. Excuse me. Glitter. Well, it's got a warning sign. What does that mean? It says that layer needs configuration because I gave it a name of glitter, but it hasn't got a clue what color glitter is because it's a generic word. So it says, hey, you need to do something with this layer. So it gives it a bright green color to say, I don't know what's supposed to be in here, so set it up. So it allows you to be able to go into the color picker and set any color you want. So when we're working with glitter, we always set the darkest most point on the glitter. Okay, so that's the first part because it's the light and shade that we're creating. So we set the dark point and then we can set the scale and we can set the intensity. We now have a glitter. Okay, so we can see that working up there. Now, I could also maybe decide I want to do this as a holographic. So let's just change this now. Let's go over to like a grey colour. So first of all, set the grey tone. Then we're going to switch on the holographic box. And now we can change the settings to match what we think will give us a holographic look and appearance. Let's move that up a bit more. Let's do intensity higher. See how we can get all that colour and change. So you can play around with this to get the sweet spot of what you like that glitter to look like. So we've now got a glitter. And again, if I decide that I'm always going to be using that type of holographic glitter, I can go in here, save that as a default, and it's going to save that again. So just to prove it, let's change it off. Let's switch all this off, reset to default, it switches it all back on. Good, hey? So we've now configured our glitter. So we've now got a rainbow holographic glitter. We've got a realistic silver toner on there to simulate it. Now obviously we wouldn't be doing this all at the same time in the file, it's just for demonstration purposes. Let's switch on the red foil. Okay, well we have foil, so we've now got reflectivity in it. But what does that reflectivity really look like? So red can be many different shades and styles. Let's just zoom in a little bit. By the way, if you do find that the resolutions are not quite to your liking, you can change it. We have a 300, 600 and a 150 DPI. 300 is nice and balanced, should be fine for what you're doing, but if you do want any finer details, you can increase it to 600. Just bear in mind that when you do it, it is re-ripping it, so you would have to reset your files up, which is where saving as defaults really comes in handy. Okay, now also to be aware, when you're ripping at 600 DPI, it's going to take a bit longer to rip. Okay, so red foil, same thing. We can go in here, we can change the color. How red is that foil? Maybe it's slightly more towards like the cherry red. We can actually bring that color in and match it to whatever we think it looks like. We can also change the reflectivity. How bright and reflective is that foil? Is it kind of a dull foil? Is it a bright shiny foil? We can also change the metalness. This is literally how much metallic effect is in there. And you can see that by doing it, it's a ratio of the environment with the substrate. So quite often you'll get these kind of like flat, plasticky kind of looking foils. Other times you'll have a high contrast, high reflectivity shine foil. So you can dial that in. You can also put in, if you just zoom right in, there's a bit of surface texture in there. If we want to, we can dial that up as well, but let's just keep it right down for now. In fact, let's just leave it off for now. So I'm designing, I look at that and I go, actually my red foil, whatever it was, I don't really think it goes very well on this design. What you can do, you can just flip it over in here. Now your separation's still going to be called red foil because that's in the artwork file, but it allows you to go in there and play around and say, would it look better with bronze? In which case, it actually does look better with bronze. So you can play around and go, actually, instead of having to change my artwork file, let's just play around. And again, you can set all your colors and textures and sliders. Now, foiling comes in many different types. So, for example, hot foil stamping. Let's do that one first. Switch on the box. Hot foil stamping is the pressure of the foil into the paper. So you then get an indentation. So you get a shadow and a highlight edge, and we can simulate that. And you'll notice in the reflectivity, when we switch that on and off, it optically changes because of the depth that it's been indented into the paper. So it's recalculating that effect. So we're trying to put in a lot of science-backed information to make it look more realistic. We can also do foil textures. So let's go for brushed. So brush metal, nice and simple. Hey, that's one of the most common ones. You can dial in the strength and the scale and the direction. So if it's coming in at 90 degrees, you can change it if you want to do whichever way that it's going on your foil. Another popular one is what we call stardust. It's like a very coarse, glittery kind of effect. And again, we can change scale and everything else. So they're the most common ones. Larger surfaced area ones, things like hammered and clouds, are pretty good. Another one that's very common, if you go to silver and go to flaked, and let's bring that up, you have this crystally, sometimes call it confetti, but it's like a multifaceted kind of effect, so we can dial that in as well. So we can bring it all in, and some of these things work better in silver, and that's the way that these textures work, is that certain colors work better. And you'll know this from looking at the actual physical real life effects. So maybe if it's in gold, we've got that gold one as well. So we can simulate different types of effect with our system. Okay, so let's go back to our normal, let's switch off the hot foil. So we're back to where we are now. So if I was doing digital foiling, this is what I would have it set up. I would just set it to the foil. I wouldn't switch on hot foil or any of the textures because digital foiling is a very smooth, flat surface. Now we can also raise it up into a 3D raised foil. So there are two sections here. There's one down here called Real Geometry, something new that's coming out in the next version, so you don't have it yet. It's not quite finished yet, but I'll show you it in a moment. So the basic one is raised foil. So let's switch on raised foil. So we give it some depth. How deep is that foil? We can also change the bevel. How smooth and rounded is that? So we can dial that in as well. We can change the highlight structure and the shadow edge. So we can really bring to life how this really looks. So we can say, okay, raised foil looks like that on my device. So if I'm doing something like a Duplo or a Scodex raised foil, we can simulate that. And that's the great thing about this, is that it allows you to be able to set this up to work in many different ways. Now, we also do have the ability to do things like rainbow holographic. So switch on rainbow, we could now have rainbow holographic. We can change what's called the coverage variation. So coverage variation is how much of that design am I seeing in rainbow at this moment in time, and how much of it looks like silver foil. Because when you look at rainbow holographic, it only comes to life and becomes rainbow as you move it. And that's what we're going to simulate in this system here. So we can now put in clears, we can put in rainbows, we can put in all that fun stuff. So we've now got rainbow holographic foils, we've got holographic glitters. Let's put this back to bronze, make it a little bit nicer. We've got the silver toner in there. Next up, let's take a look. Oh, actually, I was going to mention the raised foils. Let's switch that one off for now. The new Real Geometry, this is designed for where you're doing really larger surface area. So you get a much more defined, it's kind of hard to explain, but let me just whack this up. So on like Scodex, for example, you can do up to 400 micron in height. And if we actually turn this on the edge, you'll actually see they are actually extruded off the page. So unlike other visualization tools where basically it is flat and it's just highlights, let me just show you what I mean. If I switch that off and I switch on this one, that is a highlight and shadow reflectivity. It's flat on an angle. looks good front on, but it's fake. So what we're building at V3R is the next level of rendering. So we're going way beyond the basics. We're actually showing you how your foil would look raised off the page. So we can actually see that as a side edge profile. So there's a lot of things that we are building inside it. We do have to obviously take our time making sure it's all right. But this is just really to give you that extra level of realism. So when you're doing larger areas, if you're doing thin type and everything, you wouldn't use the real geometry because it's just going to blast it out. It's really designed for that, you know, the 400 type microns, 7 layers of varnish stacked up with foil over the top to really give it that domed, sculptured effect. But it can be done. So yeah, that's what's coming out next. Let's just put this one back onto here. Now, as you'll notice, I've actually changed the position of my design. It's all kind of all over the place, and this brings me to how do you control the file. And it's probably one of the first things we should show, but it's pretty self-explanatory. So you can click on it and move it around freely with your mouse. If you've got a trackpad mouse wheel or whatever, just move it around. You can nudge the page up and down with your arrow keys, up, down, left, right. You can use your space bar and drag it anywhere you want. And if you do completely mess it up, you can press the little eyeball down here and it will return it front and center for you. If your design comes in the wrong way round, you can actually rotate it around, so you can rotate it the correct way. So if something does come in, we do have some smart tech built into it that will try and orientate your page correctly for you so it views correctly. But if it does take over and you go, hey, I didn't want it that way, put it back, you can do so and it will reset it for you. Okay, so we've now got the clear to take a look at. So clear, well, at the moment you can see on this balloon here we have a clear, and that clear is reflective. It's got a certain level of gloss and a certain level of reflectivity. Now, just to show you how glossy you can make it, let's just whack that right up so you can see it really working. So we have set names built into this. So clear, UV varnish, Duplo, Scodex, all the primary names are in there and they all have certain settings applied to them. You can obviously set them up yourself. So if you think, well, actually, my gloss isn't that glossy, Richard, it's not, it's more like that, you can set it, and again, you can go into your presets and you can save it. You'll also notice we have a real geometry in here, so that's what we're also doing with the varnish, is we're also giving the real geometry to make that one blast out. So let's take a look. Let's just actually increase the gloss level. So we've already got some geometry there. You can see that being raised up. Let me just give it way high and increase the mesh details, and you can already see off the edge there it's actually clear and raised up. You can see all these little dots have all got little bubbles on them, and if we then reduce it down, it'll recalculate and bring it down lower. So that's the real geometry on that one. But you can use them both independently or together. It's not really an issue. It's just some people like the extrusion off the side. Some people just are quite happy with the highlight shadow fake kind of gloss looking, and that's great. Okay, so next, if you want to see what that clear looked like as a raised varnish, well, we can do that normally. So I did show you the real geometry, but you can switch on the sculptured varnish coating setting here. Switch that one on, and then what we're going to do is give it some depth. We're going to give it some reflectivity or whatever, maybe beveled edge, and we can do the same sort of thing. But as previously, when you get it on the edge, you'll notice that we no longer have that raised effect because it's all created through light and reflectivity. Looks great front on, and for most of your work, that's always going to be fine because you're just typically going to be doing that. But if you did want to create something and it was off on an angle, you're going to lose that lighting. Speaking of lighting, we can control all of that as well. So within inside the system, we have an environmental control. So we'll put at the top underneath the logo, environmental controls. Looks a bit complicated, but it's not really. So first of all, we have rooms. Now there are 2 rooms that come with the system, indoor and outdoor, and then we have these color overlays. So for example, I am currently on the indoor environment. And that indoor environment, I can change my field of view, so I can zoom in, zoom out. I can change the room rotation if I want to, and you'll see that that is affecting reflectivity in the room because all those elements come off your screen. So we can set this the way we want to. We also have directional lighting, so let me just show that now. You can see how it's moving around. That brings things to life. So it's not just about the HDR environments, we've got these spotlights as well. And we can move it down and up. So we can find a lovely little sweet spot like that and get our image looking really, really nice. And then we can do an image capture. So when we do an image capture, let me just zoom down at the bottom, the little camera, if I click on that one, it's going to take a picture of this. And it's not the same as doing a screenshot. It has to do quite a complex calculation. And people said, well, I can just do a screenshot. And it's like, yes, you can. But this is a transparent PNG. So if you did have a file cut out, let me just open all this up. Where is it? There we go. You actually get a, when it opens up, there we go. You actually get a transparent PNG file. So it's already masked out for you, already done and everything else, which is great when you're working with packaging or things that have die cut shapes, like this one, for example. Okay, so let's close that down. Let's go back into V3R. Now, we also have coming out in the new version, we have some new features. So there's some extra light settings that are coming out. One of them is a secondary light. So if you had a design that had some metallic on the bottom and you wanted to illuminate it with your lights up at the top, switching on the second light, which is not going to do much at the moment because there's nothing down here, then we could then illuminate that as well. So it just gives you the option to bring in more light into the room to capture your thing better. So we can obviously change it to an outdoor environment if we wanted to. That's going to give slightly different reflectivity because of the lighting is outdoors, but if you want to, that's entirely up to you. If you don't like the two rooms that we've given you or the environments, you can go to this company here called polyhaven.com. They have free HDRIs, that's where we got these two from. They have hundreds of the things, you can download them, install them. The only thing I would say is when you are working with your environments, look for something that's got a lot of contrast. If you look inside this room here, so for example, on this left-hand side here, you can see all these lights here. This strip light is what reflects off your design. So you have light and shade, you've got windows casting lights, etc. So all of that is what's reflection. So it's not just about the highlights, it's also about the shadows. So find something that's got a lot of quality. Now when you download these, you can actually then install them. So all you do is just go upload custom HDRI. If you have one of those swanky cameras that takes a 360 image of your room, you can also add your own. Now you can go to the Manage HDRIs and you'll see all the ones that you've downloaded and installed, and you can then load it up into your software and use it as you want. All you have to do is click on Use and it will add it. If you want to delete them, you can delete them. So we don't restrict you on what rooms you can have. You can have as many as you like. I think you can put up to like 50 in there, which should be more than enough for anybody to use. So that's how it works. Now, color overlays. You don't always want to have to see plants in the background or outdoor environments or whatever it might be. So we have the option to put on a color overlay. So light gray, for example. Typical pre-press environment, the room environment is still there. We're just hiding it with a gray overlay. And some people like the dark one, like me, when I'm working. Okay, so that's how all that works. And again, you can set all this to default. You can reset it and factory reset and all that stuff. So everything can be tailored to make the software work the way you work. Speaking of which, what about branding? Well, if we go to the top right-hand corner, we've got little cog settings. We can go and add logos. So I'm just going to change my environment to go with light gray so you can see the logo I added on yesterday. This is something that I was working on for a demonstration. So you can add your logo, just have a PNG file on that logo. You can make it whatever size you like, scale it up and down in that bottom corner. And you can also put on some text. You can change the color of the text. Let's put it back to white. And you could also put on the date if you wanted to. Let's put that to white. So you can grab different bits of information. So it's really important when you're doing this is that if you're going to be basically doing a presentation to a customer, you could put their logo on it, you can put your logo on it, you can put some text, in which case I was doing some labels for cider, and it was a demonstration of label visualization for digital foiling. And that's great. We can simulate all that inside here and it will capture it all. So if I'm doing an image capture, it will capture it. Speaking of which, if you are doing an image capture and you've got text and a logo on it, it's going to be transparent around your text and your logo, so you can just slap that over the top of a background as well, and you're good to go. Also, bear in mind, it's going to capture the size of your windows. If you do have a little file like this, you could move it around, do something like that, go into your settings, maybe have that text on the right hand side, make it a bit smaller. Where are we? Down here. Set all that up the way we want to, and then when we capture that, we've got a transparent area the size of this canvas. We don't capture the entire thing. So just common sense really. If you are for any reason wanting to hide the sidebar, there's a little sidebar button on the version that's available at the moment. It's in the middle, but the new version is up at the top. So you can hide it and you can just show your customer that. So if you want to hide everything, you can do so. Okay, so we've gone through the basics of the different layers. Now what I'm going to show you next is a white. So my file has a different white. I actually had one pre-built before, so I'm going to switch on all the layers, switch them all off. I'm going to change my substrate this time. So let's talk materials. What are you printing onto? Let's just first of all hide those logos so you can switch those off. You can remove them, upload new logos anytime you want. Well, we've got different types of materials, and there's material science baked into all that. So gloss paper, how glossy is the paper? Well, let's switch on the gloss level, and you can clearly see we've now got glossy paper. If I switch that over to uncoated, it's going to go dull. It's also going to have some ink absorption, which will make more sense if I switch on the CMYK. So first of all, let's just take a look at that CMYK on their own. If I switch this over to uncoated, the colour dulls down because you've got some absorption into the paper. So you can dial it in and save it as well. So if you want to save it as a preset, you can do so. The new version of V3R is going to have a substrate thickness, so you can actually simulate the paper itself because it's not an invisible flat sheet. It's actually got dimension to it itself. So let's just show you how that works. We can add it in here, and then we can have our 3D substrate. So if you're doing something like dye bond, then you can obviously set all that up. So that's on that one. Let's bring it back down to something sensible. So what else do we have? We also have things like clear. So before we get into that, let's show you the different substrates. So I'm going to go to basically a black kind of uncoated paper. So you can put in your measurements of your paper, whatever it is. You have an option to put in RGB. You can toggle it over to HSL or hex value to put it all in. What we're going to show you now is white. So let's add a white separation. So white rhino. How do we do this? Well, that is a white separation in Photoshop. When you're working in white in Photoshop, we have to do it as an inverse, as a negative. So this is actually a negative separation where the white goes, which makes the image look correct. How do you know how to do that? If you couldn't see white on your screen, V3R lets you see that correctly. So we can see the white. How white is white? Well, we can change the opacity because not all whites are equal. So sometimes you get a white that is more slightly grey. The reason for that is it's not fully opaque. So what we're seeing here is that the substrate coming through the white. So how strong is that white ink? So maybe my press has a basic white that looks like that. So I can go in here and I can save that again as a default. So every time the white looks right, or if I have a white that's got 2 passes through the press, I can save that and say, 2 pass white. Set it all up, configure it all, and we're good to go. So we can dial it in. We also have ink trapping. How does the 4-color sit over the top of that white? So lots of things that were built into this. It's kind of like there's so much to show you, but this is where we say go and have a look at how the different things work. I will do a quick demonstration of the ink trap sliders in a moment on something else, so just bear with me. For this, I wanted to now switch over to a clear material. So I'm going to turn it off to 0 at the moment on my substrate thickness. And the only reason I'm doing that is that we haven't coded in the transparent thick material yet. It's just completely flat at the moment. So let me just demonstrate that. If I go to clear and I go and change my room environment to indoor. So at the moment we're seeing the grey overlay, so it doesn't really make much sense. But if we put it to the room, we can now see we have clear material. Now we have got single side working at the moment, so you'll see the other side disappears. That's because we're currently working on single plane viewing. The second update that's going to be coming out later on this year will have the back side of it, where you'll be able to actually turn it around and see the reverse side. But that's a whole new level of physics and math that we've got to get our heads around to actually get coded into the system. And it is being worked on, but it just takes a lot of time. Okay, so we can see that. We could also maybe say, okay, well, we're not doing that. We're putting our clear on there. We've got our clear, so clear varnish on clear substrate with reflectivity and all that stuff. So whatever you want to do, it can be configured in here. We also have different materials like rainbow holographic. Rainbow holographic is rainbow and freaky. You can control that pattern, the vibrancy, the modulation of the colors and all that stuff. We can even put in some of our textures. Some of these are mine for having a bit of fun, playing around with math. Working out what I can create. So some of these are a little bit more developmental for me, just to kind of show how things are working. It's pre-testing for what we're doing on holographics. So one of the modules that we are working on is holographic substrates. So I put in a few of these things to test out and beta play and play around, but for now we can leave them in for people to have fun with. Okay, so let's see what else. We have all the usuals that I've had in from the foils as well, so it's all pretty much basic stuff really. Fresnel lenses and all that fun stuff. What else do we have? We have the foil substrate, so you can have your foil in any type of colour, shape, style. In this one, I've actually put on a little bit of orange peel effect. Let me just remove some of my new lighting. So I'm playing around with this new lighting for substrate, so just bear with me on that one. So you'll notice if I just turn off that clear, let's get rid of that clear so we're only seeing the room. So there's a little bit of a dimpling effect going on. So when you look at substrates, let me just put that down to 0. They're not completely smooth, so you can see they've got things in the room that are reflecting off this design, and that's fine. But the actual material itself has a slight kind of wobble to it. It's like an orange peel type effect because it's not completely smooth. It's not a mirror. It's got little dips in it. So we can dial that in and make that little bit more reflective. We can talk about reflective. We can bring that down. We can change the reflectivity, change things to the way we want things to look. So maybe it's more of a smooth kind of matte metallic effect. You know, how grey is the material? Speaking of which, what colour is it? Is it a blue metallic? Is it a gold metallic? Whereabouts are we in simulating the material? So you can put all this in. You know, if we decide that it's a brushed metal, then we can put the brushed metal inside there as well. So lots of things that you can do with this system. So pearlescent, last paper I want to show you. Plastic's a nice easy one. It's just kind of plasticky looking. Pearlescent has a few different features in here. So we have basic pearlescent materials. We have a drop down with some pre-built ones in, like champagne. When you turn it off to the edge, you'll get a flip-flop effect. So let me show you one of the ones that we built in the other day. So this one, Misty Rose, you can get the start and end colours. So when you move it in the light, you'll notice how we then get this kind of like sparkly, silvery effect coming through, just the way that pearlescent papers work. We can change the pattern scale, how fine is that material. We can change the smoothness of the material. Is it sharp? Is it smooth? So how we control and balance all that reflectivity. And again, it's all inside there, so we can change the flop color. So you'll see how we can change it and you get a completely different color. And maybe this one is slightly pinkish over here. So we can set those start and end points. So we now have the ability to do pearlescent materials. So if you are doing something, working with like wedding invitations or whatever, they're quite commonly going to be done on some of these typical kind of standard materials. So again, trying to think of everything that people might use. Now, I want to show you the ink trap. So there's a couple more things I want to show you. So first of all, let's go with my demo files. Let's go with the ink trap test. This one's going to really demonstrate what we do. Let's put it back to normal paper. Go back to paper. And this is going to show you. So when you print, say for example you have a digital device like a Sharp BP1200S, Fujifilm Revoria, Xerox Iridesce, Ricoh Pro C7500. They all have a silver ink or toner on it. Same with the gold. And when you print color over the top, you don't get pure color sticking. So at the moment, if I switch all of this off and I then switch on my silver, cyan, magenta, yellow and black. Okay, now let's switch off the silver. Well, the cyan is the same, it's all identical, and that's not the way that it works on the press because you have a fusing limitation on the machines. So anybody that's done this and you print colour over the top of silver, it doesn't look anything like that. You'll never get this bright stonking blue, magenta, yellow, etc. over the top. So what you get is what's known as ink trapping. So in the silver down here, go to the ink trapping down here, and it's not the same as trapping as in pre-press trapping. That is, it's not grips, choke, frame, spread, or what you want to call it. This is the trapping of the ink or the fusing of the ink on top of each other. What happens is you find that it's somewhere around about down here with the limitations of the fusing. And what that means is if I now turn off the silver, and you'll see underneath, we are only affecting where the metallic is. Wherever the metallic in combination with the CMYK is then being calculated by the system. And they're all independent, so I can then say, okay, well my silver works that way. On my white, and I go, switch that on, go down here, and I go to my ink trapping. The white might be pretty good. Let's just say it's around there. And then my neon pink is saying, well, what are you going to use? I'm actually going to set this to the Sharp BP 1200S because it's set up for a press that I'm in. Going to my ink trapping. Maybe the pink is, I don't know, really bad. Let's just bring it right down. It's not really bad, by the way. It's actually very good on the neons because the neon goes down last. But I just want to prove how setting all of these, let's go really, really low on this one. And again, this is just demonstration to show how it all works independently. Switch those on. Okay, so we've got all the colours in play. We've got all of the different ones. So if we now switch off the pink, the neon yellow, the silver, and the white, you'll see that all of these CMYK areas where we set the ink trapping is independently calculated for the ink that it's in use with, and it never affects any other of the CMYK on your design. That is a unique feature to V3R. I don't think there's anything else out there in the market that even comes remotely close to trying to attempt the physics behind that. But we've done that. We like to set our challenges. We want the realism to be absolutely baked in, give you as close as possible to the real thing. So there we have it. That's the basics. Now, what I want to show you next is we'll go into, let's do this golf ball box. Okay, so where is V3R heading? Well, we've got flat sheet, and that's fine, but things aren't always flat. So we're building the next generation of embellishment rendering. We're taking it to the next dimension, literally. So we're going to bring in this file here. Let me just put on a color overlay for now. Okay, so I've got my file. This was a ColorLogic job, so I'm going to print this with white ink on a foil substrate. And let's just play around with my lighting. Okay, so I've got my design, and it looks nice, and we've got all that reflectivity. And that's great, but it's flat, and it's not real. So let's go now to the top right hand corner. So this is the new thing that's coming out, not released yet. So first of all, we can set a panel. So we can click on the front one, and we can then set that as a default. So that's now the front of the design. I can actually go through and identify all of the flaps on here. So when you click on identify, it's gone through. If I do show guides, you'll see that it's put all of these things in here. Let me set that front. Okay, so we can then show all of these things folded up. So let's just go into all of these. You'll see down here we have sections. So the like tabs. Let me show the guides again. So if I click on this one here, it's highlighted this hinge, this crease over here, which then says that's number 2. Okay, so I can set that and go, okay, that's number 2. I can set this one and change the angle on this one. So all you do is you have to go through and make sure that everything is folded up the way you want to. Now I will stress that the layer ordering as well, which order you want them to appearing, will make sure that they tuck in the right way. Now, just to give you a quick demonstration, I'm going to go through and set it all up. Let me just go to the golf ball box. I've already saved the template. I'm going to apply that to my file, and then you click on fold up, and it'll go through and fold the file up for you. So we now have our high-speed golf box all folded up the way that our guide will look. So it's not to replace high-end packaging solutions. That's not our intent here. It's basically to give you the visualization of what your file would look like. We are still working on it. There's a lot more to do, but you get the idea. What we can also do is we can then change the opening, so we can open things up. So if I set all this and I then go around, obviously make sure that flaps and things don't clash, because you can't have them in the same space at the same time, obviously, but it's software. So there we go. We can now spin it all the way around. We can take a look on the inside. We've got realistic light and shade on the inside. We can play with the flaps and say, do the flaps work? Okay, yep, flaps are working. Base can be folded out. Lids, walls, however you would define it. So we can now set all that up and look at our file, make sure it folds upright, because it's very important. In fact, the interesting thing is when I set this file up for ColorLogic, one of these logos was the wrong way round. So I actually only realized it was the wrong way round by bringing it in here when I was playing around with it and spinning it around. And I'm like, oh, that's wrong. So it allowed me to be able to go back to my file and set that up. Now, what else is coming out? So let's just exit out from there. Let's go for one more file. Let's do my, let's do this one. Okay, so Staying with the metallic material, just going to set that to a spot color. Okay, so we're going to be doing this design here. So this is Zombie IPA, it's a beer label. So there are two ways of doing this. You can actually put it onto a drinks can as a wrap, like a label that wraps around it, or the new modern rendering printing systems like Hinterkopf has direct to can full body printing, and we're going to demonstrate both of them. Okay, so let's first of all go into the 3D section. I'm going to go to the can section. We're then going to go and choose the can size. This one was a 355mm 58 by 157 can. It's a taller one. So we can now spin that around. So we've now got our artwork placed on it. Now this is done as a label wrap. So we can do it without the lid. So we can switch that off and we can turn the lid off. So when you've got the lid off, you have this little freaky little rim here. You can go and look inside if you want. So what happens is when the lid goes on, it kind of rolls over and compresses. You end up with this sealed lid on the top. So we're simulating all that in our code to give it a realistic effect. So we've now got our can. Now, if I was doing a full can, that's from the very bottom right up to the neck, then we do full can printing. So at the moment, this is a label that goes around the side, full can printing. We've now got that up on the top there, so top to top. And again, if we turn off the lid, we'll see how this works. Right up to the edge of the print section. So this is what's coming out next. This is we've been doing this working in partnership with our partners at Hinterkopf. Like I said, they have an amazing machine that direct to can printing that allows you to do metallics, white, varnish, that sort of stuff. So using the metallic reflectivity of the can for the reflectivity, white ink to block out areas, and you can see there we've got a varnish on it. It's a great tool that's coming out. We also will be doing like wine bottles and other shapes that have ability to put a label on it. And if you want to, you can actually spin it around and you'll be able to export a video out as well. So great little tools. We're always looking at what we can develop inside V3R to take to the next level. That is the basic overview. There is so much more that you could go through, but please do look at our training videos. You can go to the training video section. In fact, let's just do that now, or why not? Let's go and open this up. So we have the basics, which is a short version of this, one about the settings and controls, one about varnishes and coatings. So settings and controls, that's like saving presets. How to do foiling, embossing and debossing, which we didn't cover. Metallic inks and toners. We've got die cutting, that's the old version. So currently we'll only just do a mask out, but the new version is what I've just shown you, so you get a sneak peek. Lamination, if you put matte lamination over silver foil, it cancels out the metallic reflectivity. If you bring a varnish over the top of that matte lamination, it re-cancels out. So you've got 3 different ways of physics working. We simulate all that perfectly. We can do full expanded color gamut workflow. We've got the full ECG and neon system compatibility, so it supports touch 7. We have the white ink, which I've shown you. We've got glitters that I've shown you. We can match any spot color. We don't have spot colors built into it, so it'll come in as an unidentified color. You just give it the RGB or the hex color and save it in your presets, and you're done. All the different base materials, video capture, image export, so you can export a video out. It exports a WebM format, so you can see it moving around. We have an invisible ink separation, so invisible ink, you can't see it, it's invisible, so you have to switch on a UV light and it illuminates it all. So if you're doing security applications, we've got that. And of course we have full ColorLogic support. Why do we have ColorLogic support on Touch 7? Well, that's because we also build their software. So all the systems inside there, please also do pay attention to our Academy page. So if you go to the Academy, you'll then see some more practical tips on these videos. So for example, Foilco, this is the one that has the 50 different shades of gold. We picked out a range of them from their little spinny disc that they sent me in the post, and we matched all the different gold shades and effects just to show you that there's more than one gold. You can't just have one color and say that's gold, because it isn't. The ink trapping, what I showed you today, we did this one, which was setting up for the Fujifilm Revore Silver. Matte lamination with the UV varnish and burn matte, we showed you that one. White inks, like I said, not all whites are equal. You've got different shades of them, so that's a good little video to watch. How to do embossing and debossing. Again, if you are doing this, you need to set these files up in your artwork, so you'd have a file with a spot color called emboss and one called deboss, and then you can set that up. Duplo we got there, white ink, we've done that. Why AI kind of can be good, but you've got to be able to understand how to really teach the AI to give you what you want. So this is what we basically try and give information back to our users on how to use the system. Now you can always go in here and look at any of our literature and samples. So if you do have a version of V3R, you can download the free trial version. Works for 14 days, unrestricted, no watermarks, nothing. You get access to everything. You can then download these PDFs. You can download a PDF, you can download a video, an image, play the video, and have access to all of these demo files that you can set up and play around with in your free version. So if you do want to have a look at it, do download it from there. We also have the full literature. You can download that. Have a look at our case studies. We've got features inside here. There's so much information on here to support everybody. The roadmap, what's coming out. I've already shown you most of it, so I'm not really going to go into that one. The other thing to look at is the user manual. So if you do want to look at a user manual, maybe you don't speak English very well, you can then set the language to whatever language you want. 133 languages are supported, and it will translate the entire website. Let's go to something that I might actually know, French, for example. It will then translate the entire website into French, including all the navigation. It might not be 100% perfect, but it should be good enough to get you through. So everything inside there to be able to help you understand the system. So, for example, if we go to the basics, let's see down here. So mouse pad and tracking, so canvas controls, it's all in there. Tilt, left, right, pan, zoom in, all that sort of stuff. Keyboard shortcuts. So we try and put as much in there as possible, but if you don't like the dark mode, go and switch it onto light mode. Some people don't like the dark environments. So there we go. Like I said, lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of information. If you really get bored, you can go and read through some of these essays. It's all been written up about what we think about fifth color. If you want some pearls of wisdom, you could go to the print conversation, and it will give you daily little things like, little, like I say, words of wisdom throughout the industry. So you can go through and play around with all that and blah, blah, blah. So lots and lots and lots to go into, but like I said, it's all there if you need it. Showcase has some videos that have already been converted showing what we've done. We had a customer that wanted to do Braille in a tactile UV varnish. Could we simulate it on a clear? Yes, we could. So we've got a combination of Color Logic with Touch 7 and V3R. Foiling, 3D embossing, packaging. There's just a little bit of something that we throw in there periodically. This was a feature request. Clear rainbow holographic foil. Didn't exist in V3R. We had it requested from Sabine at Paper Specs, so we built it and added it in. So if you do have a solution that you need adding into it and we can code it, we will add it. Future roadmap, holographics and cast and cure, they are on the list. Yes, we get asked that every single week from people. We are going to look into it, but it's what we always say is, does it exist now in any other software? And the answer is no. We are going to look at it. It's exceptionally complicated and hard, but we're building our own software to try and create holograms in Substrate based on a holographic die file that would be used for manufacturing. So two completely different things. We've got to interpret both of those things, render it, and then bring it into a V3R format that can be visualized. We've got other software that we're developing. Too much to go into today, but we have a whole ecosystem that's being built in the back end. So there we go. That's the updated version of what V3R is. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to us at hello@v3r.studio, and we'll be happy to answer your questions.